Hi, I'm Joe Bevilacqua. I'm a member of the Haverhill School Committee, and I watch Larry Seaman Around Town to find out what's happening around town in the city of Haverhill. Please watch.
We're in the company room at the Water Street Fire Station, and with me today, right now, is Charlie Reynolds, who's the Haverhill Fire Department historian. So Charlie, how did you get the title as being the historian for the fire department? That's quite impressive.
Really?
You must have done quite a bit of investigation or whatever into the history.
I joined the fire department up in Ayers Village as a volunteer 30 years ago. And probably about 91 really got interested in its history, and since then have been writing a book, The History of the Haverhill Fire Department, that I understand may very well be published by the public library.
Unbelievable. Who brought you to doing that? You were...
It was just, well, the former chief unofficially appointed me as the fire department historian.
Yeah.
And I just, I love the fire service, and it's a labor of love, really.
So you decided to write the book, but who pushed you into that?
Well, I originally started writing the book for the Haverhill Fire Department, its officers and firefighters. But Greg Lang at the library said, what would it take to rewrite it for the regular layman? And I ended up rewriting it. I'm not done with it. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, well, it sounds great. We're going to now talk about the 1936 flood. So why don't you go ahead with that?
On March 16th, 1936, the Merrimack River was high and continuing to rise. By March 18th, the Merrimack, thought to be at flood peak, was ravaging havoc throughout New England. There were 10,000 homeless, 50,000 out of work, and 76 dead. Throughout New England, dams and bridges were in peril as the river rose 8 inches per hour. In Haverhill, thousands of cords of wood floated down from upriver, endangering the Haverhill and Groveland bridges. The City Corps of Engineers held an emergency meeting to discuss the building of pontoon bridges to hold back the firewood. Floodwaters entered the shoe factories, the cellars of the stores, and the banks. The Water Street Fire Station was vacated. That is the station we're sitting in right now.
Right.
When the Merrimack River overflowed its banks, making the building uninhabitable. At 6 p.m. on March 19th, the Merrimack River in Haverhill was at record peak, the official gauge registering 22.25 feet. The previous high mark, reached in 1887, was 22 feet. Still, the river continued to rise, causing 19 more deaths and $50 million damage to New England. The officers and men of the Haverhill Fire Department were busy with rescue work and the salvage of merchandise. On March 19th, they ferried workers in Phoenix Road to safety. The city's business and shopping district was threatened with disaster from the rising waters of the Merrimack River. Firemen worked selfishly by night to save the property of others, while their own property was in the grips of the floodwaters. By March 20th, 3,000 were homeless in Haverhill. Businesses were closed. Train and bus services were suspended. The phone service was out. The fire alarm system at Water Street Fire Station was damaged, so an emergency switchboard was temporarily installed on the second floor of the Old Court Street station. Haverhill and Groveland bridges continued to be in danger of being carried away. At 3 a.m. on the morning of March 21st, it was evident that the river had risen 4 feet higher during the night and proved to have reached its greatest height, 30.5 feet, over the mean low water mark. And by the way, right on the back of the Water Street Fire Station, it's marked there where that high mark was. Overnight, 2 large gas storage tanks had collapsed, bringing fears of explosions. As the water reached the generator in the Water Street plant of the Haverhill Electric Company, the city was lighted by a crackling blue flame and the final gasp of Haverhill's power and lighting service. On March 22nd, as the floodwaters began to recede, Governor Curley visited the city to view the damage. Since the banks were closed, receipts from Haverhill stores were deposited at the police station. The assessed damage in New England was $300 million in property damage and 167 dead. Haverhill brought in portable spotlights from Boston in order to watch for looters at night. The Haverhill Gazette had to be printed by Salem News. Meanwhile, downtown on Washington Square, after watching livestock and bonds floating down the river, a chap named Richard Downs did a daredevil dive from the second story of a Washington Square building into the water, dressed only in his skivvies, in order to win a $5 bet. On March 23rd, the Board of Health declared a state of emergency, closing liquor stores and voiding passes to the flooded area. Police seized foodstuffs and meats from downtown stores, and by March 25th, the flood was gone. But it wasn't forgotten. Haverhill was making a slow recovery from the effects of the flood, and it wouldn't be until April 3rd that Merrimack Street would be open to travel. A total of 2,087 persons, 636 families, and 549 buildings in Haverhill were affected by this flood.